I'm glad to welcome you here to the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Awards reading. Normally we would have it at the Hamilton Club, our beautiful poetry center. But of course, because of COVID, we can't. The advantage of this is that we can get people from farther away to be part of this, which normally we couldn't. So we might have people from Pennsylvania, from New York, from New Jersey, but we probably don't get that many people from California or any place else that's far away. So the advantage of this is that we're able to get people from a distance. And I'm seeing people whose names I recognize from having accepted their poem, but whom I've never seen before. So that's quite a wonderful thing. I hope that by next year at this time, we'll be back at the Hamilton Club. We'll have a wonderful celebration. And I'm so glad we had the 40th anniversary celebration before COVID hit and before the lockdown hit. So let's hope by next year we'll be able to get together again and have this reading and be together in a room where that kind of electricity can take place. Right now, we have to let the words be electric for us, which I know they will be. So I'm going to start by calling your name and saying the title of your poem and the place where you live, and if you got a first prize or an honorable mention, I'll say that. So our first prize winner this year was Sarah Henning, and her poem is To My Husband Driving into Bad Weather. And I hope I can say the name of her town, Nacogdoches. I don't know, I'm sure I didn't say it correctly, Texas. Let's welcome Sarah Henning.
Thank you, Maria.
Nacogdoches. Where are you, darling?
Yes. Thank you so much to everyone at the Poetry Center at Passaic County Community College for selecting my poem as first prize co-winner. It was wonderful news. I'm so excited. Thank you for the hard work it took to put together these festivities. I know we will all wish we could be celebrating together in person. However, I'm so glad for this. I'm glad for this. Quickly, the poem that I'll be reading today, I just found out the collection that it is housed in just won the 2022 Hollis Summers Poetry Prize and will be coming out from Ohio University Press.
Hey.
So, all right. To my husband driving into bad weather. The storm was demoted to a winter weather advisory, but your father still told us to hang back until noon. At the Iowa border, hail came at us like BB pellets. Sleet clung to the windshield and steamy gasps. Then snow came down, fuming over snowbean fields, grain elevators, the lush pelts of cattle. By Omaha, snow obscured the edges of things, softening them as dusk came on. The roads were brine treated, but still our tires skidded into ice. Wind thrashed, stung your face when we stopped to pump gas. You locked eyes with me through the window, snow clotting into your beard like a hardened kiss. Ice spread until cold was an imagined place we settled down into. No choice but to accept the fact of it surging into us. I can't stop thinking of your father, his warning tone that came from years hauling load on the road. The storm had socked in his mobile home outside the city's plowing jurisdiction within an hour. Because we called the city office between dead spots, complaining that he was divorced, elderly, couldn't get his Ford out of the garage. The Parks Department sent a worker on a four-wheel hitched up with a snowplow, drifts from the curb thrust to the property line, flash frozen into a wall of ice. It stiffened before he could reach it with his snowblower. No luck trying to lift it, he said. Hard as granite, the son of a bitch will stay that way to first thaw. Winter is not something to fear, you'd tell me, when we fishtail on the road, and I started to hold my breath. If you fear winter, fear will paralyze you. You'll wreck on the road. You'll never leave your house. Instead of fearing it, you should respect winter, you always said. Drive slowly. Wait until the worst of it clears. Glide into wide turns. Let the salt cut made by others' tires lift you back to traction. If you respect your enemy will have no choice but to respect you. I've driven through my share of whiteouts, sub-zero swaths of Midwestern freeze, the kind where the moon illuminates ice so that darkness never completely enters us. I'd seen ethanol plants unleash their steam like breath, follow like a compass of smoke. I'd hit the high beams to pretend to drive the Millennium Falcon as though night chased me down like an enemy ship, as though I had the guts of Han Solo. I've forgotten how much I dreaded this difficult relationship with the weather. I grew up in heat, near tornadic conditions that made the air turn the color of bruise when storms threatened to shake our sleepy city. I grew up learning to lean into the rain, to push into the break and turn with the gush trying to lift you onto the skin of water. I grew up speaking the language of hydroplane, mastering the diffuse energy that would carry you into an interstate's drowning shoulder. I learned to drive into sheets of water, letting them flow over me, using that energy to work forward. Instead of working against the chaos, I learned to lean into a beauty that could kill me. I learned to master the slippery collusion and cohesion, the boundaries that shift, break, and compound as I fought the sleek path to higher ground. Once, before we were married, we drove back from a party at your friend Ryan's in the middle of a whiteout. Your Chevy had two-wheel drive, and I didn't trust the engine. I was wine drunk and pretended that we were on a roller coaster. I said, at least we'll die together. Laughed until you stopped shushing me, warning me that testing God would put us wheels up in a ditch. Until you were laughing too, palm on my thigh, as we skidded into oblivion, slid into the crushed ice that passed for your apartment's driveway. Until we kissed and kissed, when we finally killed the engine, our breath filling the car like little ghosts of longing. It became a joke that stuck. At least we'll die together. You told me any girl crazy enough to die in the snow with you would make one hell of a wife. Am I still waiting to die in the snow? Am I still watching you navigate the boundaries of torrential whiteout? Yes, we hung back to miss the worst of it. Snow pummeling the upper Midwest and going east. Thermostat dropping from 71 degrees in East Texas to 50 off the Oklahoma Turnpike, urging us to drive friendly and not drive into the smoke. Hadn't we always driven into the smoke together, one disaster after another? My mother's death, your brother's multiple sclerosis, our several miscarriages, your mother disappearing after our wedding, her disapproving silence, the closest consolation to saying goodbye. What happens if one leans into winter? One careens off the road. One hits hard into a drift of snow. One's engine stalls in the chill. One suffers the illusion of warmth before one freezes. One experiences the deepest form of obliteration. But what if one learns to move with the surges of dead white space, to careen with no friction, to master the seamless scrim of weightlessness? What if respecting winter is to respect a world lit up in white, that annihilating beauty that has never left your bones? Thanks.
Thank you. Wonderful. I'm sorry you can't hear us clap, but we were clapping. Next, sharing the first prize was Ray Peterson, What I Wanted When I Was 12, Redwood, New York. Ray, would you read your poem, please? Where are you, Ray? There.
Thank you, Maria. I wanted to say thanks to everybody involved with the contest and with the Patterson Review. I also wanted to mention that this was written at one of the workshops in Mendham. I can't remember whether you or Laura was leading this workshop, but this came from a prompt from one of those sessions. What I wanted when I was 12. For the war to end. For Martin and Bobby to live into ripe old age. To know who Ho Chi Minh was and what he wanted. For my dad not to yell so much. For my dad to be happy, to not be angry, to not be depressed. For my dad not to smoke the cigarettes he got hooked on in World War II. For my dad to not get drunk with his army buddies that year, like every year on my sister Carol's birthday, which was also D-Day. For him to be able to sleep, to be able to stop walking on eggshells, to be able to swing the heavy black bat I got for my birthday when I was 10, to kiss Louise DeLong, to hold her hand. Those two would have been good enough for now. Ask me again when I get to be 13. To write stories for Mrs. McCluskey after I saw all the attention Annette Mokry got from hers. To get rich writing stories for Reader's Digest. For the movie theater in town I could get to on my bike to still be open. For the Smothers Brothers show not to be canceled. To ride to school in my brother Louie's car. For the heater and radio to both work at the same time in Louie's car. For Nixon to really have a secret plan to end the war. For Nixon not to be a traitor. For Louie not to have a low lottery number for the draft. For Dad to be able to juggle the one farm deferment between Louie and George and me. To sleep in Louie's old bedroom downstairs once he had to go away because it was cooler in the summer and warmer in winter. To run away from home with my brown paper grocery bags filled with clothes so I could get to Hollywood and be a child actor. The slice of pie Grandma gave me when the brown paper bags ripped open in front of her house. The new brown paper bag she gave me to put my clothes in so I could finish running away. To go home when I got hungry again and remembered how good that apple pie tasted. For Pat not to move so far away. To ride to school in George's car, but not to have him hold it over me. To be able to skip straight to the Inagata Davida drum solo on the 8-track in George's car. The Beatles' White Album. To pile hay on the wagon instead of in the mow. For Dad not to have to get a kicker baler because we had one less farmhand after Louie left. To swim in the creek after a hot day in the field. For haying to be done before the field days. For lots of bottles to be left at the field days so I would have money for the rides. For my mother to be happy. For my Uncle Fred, who lived next door, not to come home drunk so often and yell and curse and smash the windows of his house with a shovel. For my dad just once to be the one to come look for me when I ran away. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Eddie, I can see you.
Who said that? Okay, well, anyway, the next is the second, we have tie for second place. Mary Crosby, Augury, and she lives in Ringwood, New Jersey. Mary, where are you, sweetheart?
I'm right here. Hi. How are you? Thank you so much, Maria and PCCC. Okay, so this poem is called Augury. My daughter does not believe in signs, that the universe is sending messages. She studies philosophy and trusts in reason, logic. She wants proof for my claim about two hummingbirds jousting in midair. The moment I walked down the front steps and my foot sank into a gap, my ankle folding like an origami swan. I spent the next 4 days in a splint, foot propped on 2 pillows. The message, stay home. That doesn't mean anything, she says. People fall. I remind her of our trip to Brooklyn the previous day, when cars around us on the GW Bridge began honking like geese in a V, because they could see what we did not, a fire beneath the chassis. After pulling up on the emergency brake, we bailed from the center lane when flames crested over the hood like a wave and consumed the car. When we don't pay attention to the message, the universe speaks louder. Stay home is what I'll believe I'll have to do without a vehicle. A freak accident, she admits, but not a message. Today we drive a borrowed car back to the bridge to pick up the police report. While sitting in stop and go traffic, I spot a wing sticking up from the ground. See the wind ruffle the feathers. Or did the bird lift its wing? I lower the window, discover a pigeon lying sideways in a sewer. In the stream of traffic, I pull over. We both jump out. So far from home, hummingbird, I murmur. Startled, Sarah turns. Says maybe she's supposed to stay. My daughter is leaving home tomorrow morning, moving out of state to transfer to a better college. I put my arm around her, tell her no. The message is meant for me, my foot, my car. I saw the blue-gray wing waving. When I kneel to cut my hands beneath the bird, his wing slides easily through the bar.
Wonderful. Beautiful, Mary. Our next second place winner is Jason Craig Poole. Jason, would you read your poem, please? Oh, I'm sorry. His poem is The Truth About Cats, and he lives in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And of course, I can't find his picture on here. I know he's here. I saw him.
I'm here.
I know you are, but why have I lost you? Oh, here you are.
Here I am. Thanks. It's so much. It's an honor to be here and a lot of fun. Thank you. The Truth About Cats. In the aftermath of 9/11, we heard stories about animals who'd been liberated from locked apartments downtown because the police had closed Manhattan below 14th Street after the towers fell. And there were so many apartments and so many animals, and the shelters we heard were overfilled, and those animals needed homes. We wanted to adopt a dog because we were both dog people who'd grown up with dogs and loved how dogs loved unconditionally and licked faces with gusto and smelled so good after a long sunbath beside the window. Our apartment building had a strict no pets policy, but we heard our co-op board made occasional exceptions for cats because they don't bark or make a lot of noise galumphing through rooms of an apartment and don't usually sneak down into the lobby to bite the mailman when he makes his rounds. But maybe the real reason they allowed a few cats is because cats are known to be the mortal enemy of mice and rats. And even the best apartment buildings in New York City might have a rodent or two because, let's face it, small and furry creatures with an acute sense of smell and a strong desire to sleep anywhere other than the gutters of the subway tracks might make their way into a building to stay warm and dry and eat a few nibbles of a bit of pizza crust that might be left out on a kitchen counter. So when we heard the stories, we went to visit a no-kill shelter near Union Square, and we told ourselves we'd look for an older cat because we were sure we'd never know how to care for a kitten, and our furniture would never survive their tiny but sharp claws, and we immediately fell in love with a ginger-haired cat who seemed completely disinterested in us. According to the sign on his cage, his name was Vinny, and he was older, around 1.5 years was the guess, and they said he thought he was a dog, a perfect match. So we went home and we sent a letter to our co-op board, who granted us an exception to their no pets policy right away, even though we didn't have a rodent problem. A few days later, we went back to the shelter to pick him up, and we were met by a woman named Elfie, who told us they sometimes worked with animal communicators, like that show on TV. And our new cat, Vinny, said he didn't like the name Vinny at all. Apparently, he told the communicator, who I think was Elfie herself, that his name was Thomas, not Tom or Tommy, Thomas. And I said, "Hi, Thomas." And he turned his head to look at me and pointed his yellow eyes, and that was good enough for us. Thomas it was, and we brought him home to stay. The next day at work, I told my friends about him and how he'd chosen his own name, and they all laughed at me and told me I was crazy. They told me cats will look whenever they hear a word that ends in S, because cats want to find the source of the hiss. And when I got home from work, I sat down beside him on the living room floor, and I called him Nostradamus and Lorenzo Lamas and King Kongus, and he ignored me and stared at the wall. But when I called him Thomas, he turned to look at me and meowed. I didn't tell my friends they were wrong, but Thomas and I know the truth. Thank you.
Wonderful. Oh, it's great to hear good poetry. Next is our third prize winner, Rochelle Mem Parker. I worry about a Tatiana Jefferson's nephew, and she lives in Maplewood, New Jersey. Rochelle, would you
Hello,
read your
everyone.
poem?
Yes.
I know
Thank
I
you,
saw you
Maria.
1 second ago.
I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you for this, and I'm very inspired with this third place win, because it reminds me of all the ants in the world, and this is dedicated to them in honor of my aunt. I worry about a Tatiana Jefferson's nephew, because who's going to teach him the things his mama can't get to? Who's going to take him over the Brooklyn Bridge the way I did my niece when she was teeny weeny, the Hudson River filling her nose and a stroller, on her bike with training wheels, then in shoes I thought too high for walking? Who gonna show him a dish the way my Aunt Mary showed me? Sweating onions in her olive green Dutch oven, the pieces of chicken thighs, the tomatoes canned, the tomato paste. Chicken cacciatore, she said, when I had only known fried and boiled for dumplings on Sundays. She worried that I would get the bay leaf out. She worried over and over about how it could slit your windpipe if you swallowed it. Who gonna show him how not to kill his own self? How to stay alive and well, build a home, appreciate lace curtains, china in a hutch, or gold-plated flatware? Who gonna make him know a good woman? Who gonna pass down a good cast iron pot?
Wonderful, honey.
Thank you.
I love the specificity of it. Wonderful. Our next honorable mention winner is Howard Berelson, and his poem is called Lady in Blue, and he lives in Teaneck, New Jersey. Howard, would you read your poem, please?
Sure. Lady in Blue. I cut the backing off the framed watercolor portrait, carefully removing it from its frame so I can photograph it, color correct it in Photoshop as close to the original as possible, and print a copy for a friend. Woman in a blue hat with earrings. She is a 1940s woman with the appearance of just the proper look of an aspiring woman of means. Her blue hat accented with what I think were purple flowers, but here in the original work, just a wash of lavender watercolor bleeding into the blue. Her skin tones, a wash of faint rose, lends an air of fragility. Her skin appears as dry as parchment, and one can almost breathe the fragrance of perfume or some fine powder. Powdered and fragile she is. A slash of red across her lips, a smile perhaps, a smirk. I really don't know. Layers, one over the other, a color or tone correction, each with its own layer to match the tone and texture of the original. It's as if the layers became the many personas of this lady in blue, as personas were tried on like the color of a shawl or of a hat, or maybe blended like watercolors soaked into the fabric of the paper, becoming fixed and permanent. I could not help but think of another woman of the 40s. Hers were layers of survival. She learned to put on a hat or a shawl or earrings. Each must have given her the illusion of substance, interchangeable layers and impermanent until they were unable to be removed. Child of Odessa. At the age of 2, you came here on the Lusitania with mother and father and a brother who was never to be seen again. Child of Odessa. You came to escape the Cossacks laying waste to live in the tenements of Eldridge Street. You burned the furniture in the tub in the winter to keep warm when the heat was turned off. When the rent was due, you fled to other apartments, to other streets, to Hester Street, to Grand Street, to Orchard Street, to Brooklyn, to Patterson. It didn't matter where. I wonder what your dreams were like. I wonder if you borrowed your dreams, child of Odessa, woman of Odessa, daughter of a Russian baker. He died in the streets of the Lower East Side from alcoholism, you know. They all drank. Russian bakers did in the middle of the night, baking bread, alone in their shops. It was enough to drink. You hid from memory. You hid in dreams. You hid in the shadows. I wonder how you manipulated your layers like a shawl or a hat that you wore. Was it really that easy? I corrected the layers of the woman in blue to come close to the original portrait to bring into focus so one may gather just a hint of perfume, the lilacs that adorned her blue hat. No matter how I tried over the years, I could not bring into focus what remained in the shadows of your life. I wonder if your life of dreams and shadows protected you. I wonder if we all dreamed that way. I can see you more clearly now, woman of the 40s, woman of Odessa, how you struggled for meaning, how you struggled just to be alive, how you struggled just to breathe.
Thank you, Howard. That poem made me cry, as do many of the others. The next honorable mention winner is Teresa Burns, and her poem is called Green, and she comes from South Orange, New Jersey. Teresa, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Maria.
Where are you, darling?
Can you see me? If I talk, I should show up.
You should show up, but it doesn't work
It
quite
doesn't?
that here.
Okay.
Just wait a minute. I have to find you. I'd like to see you while you're reading.
So I should say la, 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 so that my rectangle shows up.
Yeah. Maybe that would work. Well, don't worry about it. Just read your poem. honey.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. I'm really, really enjoying these poems. So my poem is called Green. Did I tell you I had a Vespa once? Pretty color, something between a turquoise and the Kelly green of my mom's favorite sweater. Dad got the bike cheap from Hatton Fist Farm when they sold. Teddy and I spent that summer fixing it up, took turns riding it to the lake, the rally races, and a couple of times to this spot right here. We talked about how we didn't want a life like Mom and Dad's. We wanted apartments in the city, working in an office with air conditioning and a Whole Foods next door, like Teddy has now. The first time we got high was here. Clouds purplish at midday, and where the grass line set against the next mountain glowed lime. And we laughed our asses off, thinking it was the weed making things extra green and alien. But now I see it's that way at dusk too. The horizon lit and even more lemony flowers I can almost taste, though that tree on the right seems somehow diminished. I'm not so bothered by things these days. I get how the world is sweet but bitter at the same time, and it's no one's fault. I can't even remember what happened to the Vespa, if Dad gave it away or Teddy sold it before he moved out. What about you? Did you ever lose track of something you once loved? And how did you get anywhere without it? Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see. The next honorable mention winner is Felicia Sansari Chemensky, and her poem is Mother Tongue, and she's from Flemington, New Jersey. Let's Felicia read your poem, honey.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Mother Tongue. Marie Carosa spoke to us the old world way, although we called her Grandma, never Nona. Her outstretched hands and humble, tight-lipped smile did all the talking. To me, she was Madonna of the tender cupping of a chin with rough red palms, to pinch a cheek or wipe the childish tear. We watched her hold, then pluck each ripened plum tomato from our grandpa's backyard garden vine with that same care. To taste and see her mother tongue divinely sung in Sunday macaroni and meatballs served with table wine. Her beige chenille bedspreads pinned in clothesline prayer was to learn her words for daily bread and hard-earned rest. Grandma never said, "I love you," but we were blessed, warm bellies full, to sleep on pillows of fresh air. Thank you.
Wonderful. I love the chenille bedspreads. Reminds me of my own childhood. Okay, let's see. The next honorable mention is Laura Didyk, Poetry House, and she's from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And I have to see if I can see her. Oh, here
Hi,
she.
I'm
Hi,
here.
Laura. Read your poem, darling.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for everyone who put this together. Poetry's House. From the phone in the kitchen, I have called friends crying. I've called my mother and my father. At 4:30 a.m., I made a $300 call to Varanasi, India, where people go to die. I have called people I would not otherwise call. I've cried on couches and porch swings and in the passenger seat of different boyfriends' broken down cars. Written desperate letters to ex-lovers, desperately knocked on doors, fallen into lust with men who are married or about to be married, or who were once married but are now divorced and old enough to be my father. I have taken walks at night, hoping the impossible math I must work with each time I look up will make me into someone else. I have painted my breasts blue and my stomach red, and bodies of other women whatever colors they choose. Chanted in deserts everywhere. Spent 4 days alone in a Utah canyon under an alligator juniper tree, with water, a notebook, a pen, remembering and remembering, until my eyes were slits and all I saw was the truth. I have tried doing nothing on a Sunday until the pressure was too great and I finally took a drink. Tried being perfect, tried loving everyone, then everyone else. I have scratched my skin into acres of red, unsatisfying rashes. Late at night in Rhinebeck, New York, I ran deep into the rain out of nervousness from what I have no idea. Collected 3 stones from a roadside dirt pile in Bisbee, Arizona, and placed them on my shelf, hoping they'd collect meaning, turn into the words, "I am here." I have landed aerial flips on a 4-inch beam, swung on bars until my hands bled, catapulted myself down a runway until I was speed and blue energy and light. I have won medals. I've carried wine bottles in my arms like books, psychedelics in my mouth like medicine, had long crystalline conversations with people who are dead. I've gorged myself on poems by women and by men, line by line, breath by breath. I've written in meter, in airplanes, and every night since I can remember in my head, making what isn't into what is, what matters into what doesn't. I have been inside of Poetry's house, and this is what I know. Everything I've done and been and thought I found was born there and raised as language, word, sound. Thank you.
Wonderful, Laura. Beautiful poem. Next, Christopher Duffy, When Men Wore Fedoras, and he's from Woodridge, New Jersey. Christopher,
Hello. Yep.
you're
Thank
here.
you. I'm here. So when men wore fedoras, when men wore hats, carried briefcases without shoulder straps, they walked the world hard and as large as small town heroes, while children ran through sprinklers on front lawns and moms watched on from kitchen windows. When our Sunday best brought forth time to reflect and repent, we as a nation stood proudly under God and our country, while the Joneses had not yet moved into town, compromising our contentments. When marriage was not so quick and momentary a thing, and the place that employed you was most likely to retire you, unbeknownst to us, our hopes and dreams were all asbestos-based, and nothing still is what it seems.
Wonderful. It's the moment very well. The next honorable mention winner is Jim Dwyer, and his poem is called Love Poem, Nothing Wrong But All the Usual, and he's from St. Petersburg, Florida. Jim, are you there?
I am here.
Good.
There I am.
Which poem, where are you? I can't find. Technology.
There we go. Ready to go?
Yeah,
This is
go
very
ahead.
cool. Very cool. Very good for my soul. All this good poetry. This one goes like this. And everyone says that they don't know why you did it, why you put that gun in your mouth and squeezed the trigger. But I think we know. I think we know exactly why. I think we always do. It was the sky. How close, how far away, and those clouds like time, their stubborn refusal to stand still. It was people and pride and hunger and need and dreams and facts and sex and no sex and loneliness and family and loneliness. It was bad luck and worse choices. It was God and grief and love and how long it lasts. It was history, gossip, rumors. It was data and information, chaos and symmetry. It was beauty, belief, passion, hate, freedom, drugs, money, suffering, America. It was everything. It was nothing. It was you, my friend. It was you and all your it was you and all your shadows. And so, yes, I will mourn your death. I will write this poem, but I will not join in these prayers for your soul, your salvation, because to me, there was nothing wrong with your soul or your life. Nothing wrong, but all the usual. And as for the way you chose to die, well, you probably could have made less of a mess, but I'm guessing you were trying to do the job right, trying to make sure you were done for, dead forever, and never coming back. You were always that sort of character. Make a cannonball splash, drink the bottle dry, write your name in red, drive that beautiful wreck of a Thunderbird till it just couldn't roll anymore, then leave it in a ditch by the side of the road and walk all the way home, 22 miles on Christmas Eve, and you still weren't sober when she opened the door. Thank you.
Wonderful. Very good. Next is Maria Fama, and Maria's poem is called Daddy's Little Cap, and she comes from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Maria Fama.
Can you see me, Maria?
I'm having, I'm so dumb with these computers. You have to forgive me. I know you're here somewhere. I saw you
I'm here.
before.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. That's the
okay.
most
Great.
important thing.
Great. Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's really an honor to be among you all. And this is called Daddy's Little Cap. I kissed Daddy's little cap when I found it. Yes, I kissed Daddy's little cap when I found it. The little cap he wore to America in 1939. I kissed it when I found it in the cellar cedar closet in the little suitcase he carried from Sicily. I found the little cap after my mother died, 8 years after my father's death. I found it, I kissed it, took it home, hung it in the cellarway closet where I can kiss it every day. After 80 years, the little cap looks brand new. Dark gray, pebbled wool, an inscription on the silk inside dome. Excelsior, prodotto italiano preferita. I know this little cap story all about fitting. Daddy told me years ago, my Nonna Maria, Daddy's mother, bought the cap for his journey to America to be with his father in New Jersey, away from fascist Italy's grip. My father tried the cap on in the Sicilian shop. So fashionable, a perfect fit. 16 years old, Daddy wore his new cap on the train to Palermo. He wore his new cap when he boarded the ship to Naples. He wore his new cap walking the deck that chilly March until his father picked him up at the New York dock. Fedoras, 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 everywhere fedoras. My nonno Frank, Daddy's father, sported a movie star fedora. The friend with the auto to take them home wore a fedora. Fedoras, fedoras, fedoras on every male's head. All of a sudden, Daddy felt very poor. All of a sudden, Daddy felt he did not fit in. He was a country bumpkin on his new little cap. When they got home to the attic apartment, Nonno Frank shared with Uncle Louie, Uncle Pete, and Cousin Tony, my father saw all their fedoras hanging on hooks. He stuck his new wool cap in his little suitcase, never to be worn again. Nobody in the States could wear such a hat. Nonno Frank bought my father a gray fedora, showed him how to wear it on an angle. 80 years later, the little cap that Daddy shunned because he needed to fit in has for me the aura and allure of a relic. I'd wear it myself if it fit, but my head's too big. Every day I kiss the little cap. Every day I kiss the little cap. My father always in my head, always in my heart. Thank you.
I love it. Wonderful, Maria. Okay, let me see. Linda Nemec Foster, a modern parable for the end of the world. It is from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Linda, your
Hello.
poem.
Hi.
Doc.
Can everyone see me and hear me?
Yeah, I can see
Good,
you.
because
That's-
we were having some computer issues earlier, so I'm glad I'm here with you. Thank you, Maria. And I also have to thank the science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, the great Arthur C. Clarke, who inspired this poem, and also the Dalai Lama. So here we go. A modern parable for the end of the world. An atheist with sweaty palms writes a science fiction story, The 9 Billion Names of God, about a High Lama in Tibet who contemplates the end of the world. Sometime in the middle of the last century, that hazy plateau of the 1950s, his monks rent an automatic sequence computer and a Mark V system in Fortran to compute all the possible names of the Holy One. The Lama believes this process will hasten the end of the miserable world. The computer takes 3 months to sift through all the names. It was the 50s, after all. And the world begins a wonderfully slow, lingering, almost romantic death. But that's the atheist version. In my agnostic brain, I'm not sure about anything. Both believers and non-believers reside on opposite sides of the same coin. In my version, the author couldn't bear to write the last sentence. He puts destiny on hold. The world doesn't end, but begins an inevitable journey backward. The computer becomes an anachronism. and the High Lama gives up on enlightenment. At least this is the story that is told around those fires where men sit in caves, sharpen their spears, and listen to the birth pains of their women.
Oh, wonderful, Linda. Great to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
The next reader is James D. Gwynn, and his poem is In Plain Sight. And he lives in Clifton, New Jersey, and he's an honorable mention winner. James D. Gwynn.
Hi, Maria. Thank you.
Hi.
Thanks, everyone, for keeping poetry alive during these times and every time. My poem is called In Plain Sight. When my son closes his eyes and cups his hands over them, he thinks he's hiding from me. It doesn't work that way, I say. You can't see me, but I can still see you. He repeats his Morse code of peeking and closing his eyes a few more times in a mix of shyness and regret. I finally get it out. He doesn't want me home yet. He had 5 more math problems, and he hoped to be finished before I walked in with the world. I'm glad it's only math, I say. Here, maybe this will help. And I cover my eyes, announce I am not home, wishing I were 7 again, living in plain sight, wanting to promise him a simple plan to show how to live with all illusions intact, living inside my dreams instead of dying inside my life.
Wonderful, Jim. And next honorable mention winner is Catherine Hardy for a student who wrote about suicide and who was absent today. And Catherine comes from Los Alamos, New Mexico. Catherine, will you read your poem?
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with everyone, and I can't wait to read all of your poems in print. And this, oddly but differently, responds to Jim Dwyer's poem. For a student who wrote about suicide and who is absent today, if it were a cry for help, then I sent her an email stating that I look forward to discussing her work in class the next time, offering a future. If it were a game, then I'm not playing, having seen the way she holds hostage her tenuous friends. Today, the neighbor's car alarm was set off by a canyon bear that bumped the door as another neighbor shot at him, only to scare, but to do no harm. Who should we call to shut off the alarm, cracking through the trees and bouncing against our eardrums? The car's owner won't be back for a week. He is vacationing in the Bahamas, probably drinking an umbrella drink, perhaps dancing to the marimba, with no idea of our distress. We could call the police or 911 or AAA. But wait, the siren has stopped. I don't know how, and I just heard a beep and my student has written me back, apologizing for her bad behavior in class, for her overuse of the word fuck, and has told me she had a breakthrough and that she will be back in class tomorrow, needing my advice on the attached 20 pages of her heart's true confessions. Thank you.
Wonderful. The great things about being a teacher. The next honorable mention winner is Valerie Hastings, and the poem is State Emergency, and she comes from
San Francisco.
San Francisco, California. I can't read across the line. Okay. Valerie Hastings.
Good morning and good afternoon. It's still morning here. It's so nice to finally meet you, Maria. Thank you, and gosh, what an honor to be here among such wonderful poems. State of Emergency. It's Fat Tuesday, and I'm riding the one California to work with the baby Jesus on my lap, stuck inside a king cake. I'm already amped on a double shot latte made by the scar-battered hands of a refugee from El Salvador who drives Uber after his Starbucks shift is up because he thinks his kid can be a doctor here in America. When I read the presidents at Mar-a-Lago, 3 weeks into the national emergency, after returning from a failed summit in Vietnam, a place he visited last week for the first time since bone spurs first impeded his travel to Southeast Asia. And it reminds me that my father was there in the 60s for 3 tours of duty in a whiteout place in his life he still doesn't talk about. Not exactly a golf holiday, but he voted for him all the same. And this gets me thinking again about the video of that kid on the National Mall in a red MAGA hat, staring down a Native American old enough to be his grandfather. And I can't figure it out. How an 11th grader knows an America that was greater than the one he was born into. I try to keep these ideas to myself, but I grew up in the 70s and I don't want to go back to shag carpet, my mother's avocado kitchen, my boyfriend's blue leisure suit, Richard Nixon. So when I hear the Dow's already slid 467 points this week, 775 days into the presidency, our president is still talking about the size of his inauguration crowd, I'm pretty confident nothing much is going to change the state we're in here. It's been raining for 3 weeks solid after the fires almost incinerated us because we apparently forgot to rake our leaves. Some say it's like something out of the Old Testament, this rain. And I pat the little cake on my lap and say it's okay because I kind of see their point. Folks just aren't turning their cheeks like they used to. They're trading eyes and teeth for crack cocaine on these sidewalks. While we keep our heads in the down position on this bus, earbuds in, our devices up, we're rolling over rivers of vomit out there. Needles, human feces mixed with rain, bodies hunkered and cold behind sheets of plastic. Yesterday, I walked to work and saw a woman seated in the middle of the sidewalk in a wheelchair with a potted tree roped to her hand like a pet as the storm rolled over her, and I didn't even stop. The woman sitting next to me on this bus is reading a story about Christ's blood on her phone. I'm reading about protests last weekend over a 22-year-old boy, same age as my own, who got blown away by 8 rounds, 6 of those in the back in his grandma's backyard because 2 cops mistook his phone for a gun. I want to tell my fellow bus rider that the baby inside this cake is plastic and made not in love but in China, that he's painted gold because it's easier than trying to choose between black and white, that opioid deaths now exceed traffic fatalities in this country, that we've lost our capacity for astonishment. The average bullet travels 1,700 miles an hour. That's more than twice the speed of sound. This means that bullet can hit your kid before he even hears it. The news feed on my phone cheers me on, says our universe is expanding faster than it should be. It doesn't have to tell me we're just like those dark-brimmed galaxies. The farther apart we are, the faster we fly away from each other. Thank you.
Wonderful. Very good. What good poems. Next, Mary Jo Lobella Jerome. I dream what my mother means to say, and she comes from New Hope, Pennsylvania. Mary Jo, will you read your poem, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Perfect.
I find you, but go ahead.
I dream what my mother means to say. Here are the papers, important, ordered, wrapped in rubber bands according to year and account, and all the bills by outstanding and paid. And don't let that roofer fool you, that son of a bitch. God forgive me, I paid him in full. And here, the canceled checks for donations I made every month to the church and the Precious Society of the Sacred Heart, for their beautiful mass cards that I keep in shoe boxes. If you need one for a funeral, now that everyone we know is dying. And the jewelry, remember, I've already divvied among you, my sweet girls and the boys' wives. No difference, even that one who left, I'll never forgive her. And whatever gold I didn't give away, I wear every day on a chain around my chicken skin neck, because the rings slip from spindly fingers I don't recognize. And the heavy anniversary pendant bruises my breastbone like all these years. Remember, it's under my blouse in case an ambulance takes me alone and unconscious. You can't trust anyone. And Dad's medicines are here, even the old bottles with faded labels. Maybe they're still good. He was always sick with something. And if anyone needed a doctor, it was me. But did I complain? And the tax bills are here, and the annuity account in my name alone. Remember how he fell for Atlantic City, those crooks, and the deed to the house, which I've already signed over to your sister, because the rest of you had your chances at love and you blew it or not, but she's still single. And do not tell me again it's her choice and she's happy. She gets the house. Don't argue with me now. I'm tired. Everything aches since we lost your brother, my first, the best of us. Mine alone for a year. How could he drown? He was so strong. I'll never understand. What my mother really said, pausing at the foot of her bed, out of breath. Look in the straw when I'm dead.
Oh, wonderful poem. Diane Corey is the next honorable mention. My Mother and Her Piano. And Diane lives in Cresskill, New Jersey.
Thank
Diane,
you,
I know
Maria.
I saw you. Hi, honey.
Hi, thank you, Maria, and it's good to be here with everyone else. My mother and her piano. My mother dreamed of having her own piano, remembering the hours practicing at her aunt's home because there was no room or money for music in her own. Knowing her longing, my young father imported bird-shaped cigarette lighters from China in the early 1950s, selling them, making enough to buy his bride a piano for $600, a console, tall and dark, its mahogany shiny, unblemished and cherished. In those earliest days of that first piano, my mother, sitting on its music-filled bench and I next to her, sang songs for me in her trained soprano. The Farmer in the Dell, Three Blind Mice, Frère Jacques, Jesus Loves Me, her face radiant and hands playing simple chords. How I wish to play too. In an old photo at that piano, she wears a flowered kimono and smiles at the camera, her page-boyed black hair framing a face more beautiful than starlight. Later, when I came home from school, she'd often be singing hymns, her hands slow dancing on the keys, her yellow dress radiating sunshine, and the fragrance of arpège rising from her skin. Other days, she'd sail into Fiordalisa, playing from memory over and over again until we children fled, exhausted by its sounds. In time, a grand piano replaced the console, a walnut Steinway from the 1940s, with ivory keys yellowed and cracked from years of fingers playing, and heat and cold taking their toll. On this piano's longer bench, she'd sit and play as if in a dream. When all her children were grown, my mother moved to an apartment with neighbors beyond thin walls, and the old grand followed the console to my sister's home, where it sits majestically in a living room, reminiscent of our mother's. On Thanksgiving, 6 months before she died, my mother, decked out in pale pink, joined her granddaughter on the familiar bench, the two of them playing and singing Christmas carols, my mother alert again and radiant. And when they stood, still filled with music, these two women, one ancient, one young, faced each other, held hands, and danced as if that day they had discovered joy. Thank you.
Wonderful, honey. Beautiful poem. Okay, next is Raphael Helena Kosik. And her poem is Foggy Morning at the at the auto body shop. And she comes from Hopewell Junction, New York.
Right here, Maria.
Wave at me.
Okay.
I know
Here
you're
I
here.
am. Here I am.
I just saw you.
Okay.
That's
Still
all right.
here.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right. Just a brief thank you to you and everyone who put this together. And also I'd like to say this poem was inspired by a favorite love poem, which you probably all know, Quarantine by Even Boland. I love that poem. Foggy morning at the auto body shop. Standing in the parking lot next to the hulking body shop, watching the owner mark lines on the rear of my car and take pictures while fog shrouds the Hudson in damp December. I am struck by the fact that my husband had vacuumed and washed the car in yesterday's bleak cold. It is stunningly white, and that he is the only person who would do such a thing for me. And somehow the weight of this settles upon me as I gaze out, chilled over bruised cars and the invisible river that broods under the fog. And I know love is not the glamorous thing we make of it, because I feel love here in the fog, where men with black grease smears on their hands toil and hammer away in the homely building, and stray seagulls wheel over me in a dirty sky, prettier than any I've ever seen. Thank you.
Wonderful. Our next honorable mention is Jennifer Laguerre. I remember him, and she's from Monterey, California. Jennifer.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Maria. What a delightful way to start a Saturday, just awash in poetry. So thank you. I remember him. I see a version of my dad's smile on my sister's face, have inherited his stubby fingers, wide feet, and hammer toes, which strain my Birkenstock sandals. He taught me how to shoot a .22 rifle, then a 20 gauge shotgun, the trick to driving a stick shift, double clutching his yellow Bronco, which levers and pedals to push on the John Deere tractor. He made me a substitute for the son he never had, took me pheasant hunting, clam digging, fishing in high Sierra streams and the Stanislaus River. At our local coffee house, I bullshit with his surviving cronies, laugh as we remember his various pranks, can almost see him holding court at his favorite table. He'd defy warnings from mom and doctor, gobble forbidden maple bars, knock back scalding black coffee with gusto. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, next is Annie Lanzolotto, and her poem is called Narina, and she lives in Yonkers, New York. Annie?
Hi, Maria. So good to see you.
It's good to see you too, dear.
This is glorious. Thanks to everyone in Smita out there and your whole staff who I miss, Maria. All right, Nerina. Nerina slid right up to my leg. A little black cat up the part of the mountain known as San Gregorio, between Messina and Palermo. Nerina lived on a dirt road without a name. Houses built right into the mountainside. Olive trees growing up the steep rise. When Nerina was born, they thought he was a girl. So they named him the feminine Nerina, little black. In time, they saw he was a boy, but by then the name stuck. Nerina visits neighbors and paesane across the road and up the hill. He lives with Felicia and Zeus the dog, and Felicia's son's family. Felicia I met for 1 hour in life. She was 94, and it took me more than half my life to get to Sicilia and up her side of the mountain. Life is one brief visit, and we both knew it. We greeted each other this way and said goodbye this way. Felicia winked at me with her one good eye, and in that wink, we shared all this. Enjoy life, my friend. How blessed I feel to have met you for this 1 hour. How lucky. You're so beautiful, and I will treasure this visit. This is an hour never to be forgotten. You smile in my heart now. Felicia handed me a giant zucchini from her giardino, and I went on my way back down the mountain. Although I would have loved to stay there forever, for her to take me in like Nerina. Nerina visits Stefania, the neighbor, who says, fuori, fuori, when he climbs the fence. Outside, outside. Si vieni dentro vuoi il latte, si offre il latte vuoi cibo. Si offro cibo, sempre ritornerà. If you come inside, you want milk. If I give milk, you want food. If I give food, you'll return forever. How much I feel like Nerina. Strangers call me sir, though I am a girl. Children refer to me as he. So quickly they are conditioned as to what a girl should present like, should sound like. And I do not seem to them this way. But when the word he is spoken by a child, I can't help but feel they perceive my true nature. I am not feral, I am not stray. Like Nerina, I too have a name. I used to live in a house with a family, but that is all in the past. Now the people have died or moved on, and I walk alone in the world. I have keys to a door. The windows I leave open so a wind can enter and shake me loose. From place to place I wander, into friends' houses where I sit at tables and visit their families. My species organizes itself into these tiny groupings called families. Perhaps I need to change species, find one that organizes more broadly. An unlocked door, warmth inside emanating from the hearth. A woman who waves me in saying, come in, take off your shoes. We've been waiting for you. The kettle's on. Stay as long as you like. There's a job you could do. You are one of us now. This is your hive. This is what I dream of, to belong, to have a role. Friends welcome me, but the clock too is always, always there. And the calendar tallying goodbyes. I sleep on couches and floors, on porches, and in beds and spare rooms. I'm offered basements and attics, but something always gives. Like Nerina, I sidle up to places and people, hoping someone, someplace sticks. Thank you.
Wonderful, Annie, as always. Next is Antoinette Libro, mail order mother, and Antoinette is from Sea Isle City, New Jersey. Antoinette?
Here I am. Here I am.
I know you're, oh, okay, no, wait.
Can you
Where
see?
are you? Oh, there you are, honey, there you are, okay. Antoinette Libro, reads your poem, Mail Order Mother. Wait, you don't have your sound on. You have your sound off.
There we go.
Okay, thanks, honey.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Wonderful to see you and be with you and everyone today. I'm very honored to be here. I'm going to read Mail Order Mother. When I was growing up in the 40s, my mother ordered everything from the Sears and Roebuck catalog, sometimes even Montgomery Ward. How else were you supposed to get what you needed? There she was, leafing through the latest catalog to arrive in the mail, its colorful pages filled with attractive models smiling, showing off latest styles in dresses, coats, and jackets for men, women, and children. She filled out the order form and sent it off, counting the days until her order arrived in a brown box delivered by the US Postal Service. Out might come a pretty plaid dress, a pair of shiny patent leather shoes, so her daughter could go to school wearing her pretty dresses and winter coats, carrying her pencil boxes and workbooks, her mother already delving into the catalogs for the next order, searching for that party dress or for her husband's work shirt and pants. As time went by, the catalog stores opened up so that the orders could arrive there for pickup, shaving off a day or two of waiting for the mail. A phone call would get the pickup in motion, and off she would go to get the package. Yet another step in the evolution of mail order. Yes, mail order, they called it. Not as good as going to the store, but she made do. The catalog brought the world home to us, right there on the kitchen table. Where everything from clothes, toys, and appliances, even underwear, bras, and panties were pictured in living color with detailed descriptions and choices. Now, today, mail order is back in fashion, not from catalogs as much as from online sources, department stores advertising their wares and sales with coupons and promotions, enticing the recipients, endless calls to shop now, take advantage now, a click or two, the order is placed and confirmed. Do you want expedited shipping in 24 hours? Or as Amazon might say, would you like it yesterday? It's all the same. We order today online the way we ordered what seems a lifetime ago from catalogs and holiday wish books. Now it's considered cool because it's online. But she was cool too, in her 40s house dress, yellow pencil poised above her order blank, thinking ahead as to what was needed for the upcoming season or special event, planning and budgeting her meager means to supply her family with what they needed. She did it all, holding court at the kitchen table, sharpening her pencil, licking her envelope shut, getting it in the mail, and then waiting. Once the order arrived, so did the moment of truth. Sifting through and sending back what didn't fit, or whatever wasn't was, whatever wasn't what she thought it was.
Wonderful, Tony.
Thank you.
Good to hear you.
Thank you, Maria.
Next is John H. McDermott Jr., and his poem is called Gone Fishing, and he lives in Cranford, New Jersey. John, read your poem.
Hi, thank you. This is a wonderful party. The title of this poem is a question. Gone fishing? Of course my father loved me, I guessed, but for a long time, it didn't seem like he liked me much. The man I was, the things I liked, the way I lived, the women I married, the things I believed. It's amazing how blind I can be. For in those years of Sunday visits, when he lived alone and with almost no sight, he saw me well enough to know he needed to ask, did you go fishing yet? Knowing I loved the slow sitting, the waiting, the quiet, but many years never got to the stream. He gave me that nudge, not so I'd be more like him, he never fished, but that I should find some time for more than work. My father, who worked for years to pay for mortgages, encyclopedias, bikes, piano lessons, and college, then worked more to save for trips he never got to take, retirement cruises and bus trips to autumn foliage. Instead, he spent his days caring for Mom, and it left him with no time, no eyes for Vermont or Bahama beauty. But this man who maybe wondered if I loved him All those years before I began to come each week for lunch, asked each week over burgers in the Midway Diner, or walking through ShopRite to buy peanut butter crackers or hard toffee, or as we rode South Jersey back roads that he remembered more than he saw, or sometimes back in his room before I left, if I'd gone fishing. Thanks.
Oh, wonderful. All those missed chances. Gloria Murray is our next honorable mention winner, and I Could Have Been a Hippie, West Orange, New Jersey. Gloria, would you read your poem? I know I saw her a second ago. Gloria, are you there? Is Gloria there? She was there a second ago. Well, okay, I'll go on to the next person. Frank Nicoletti, My Watch in a Sow's Ear, West Orange, New Jersey. Frank? And I know Frank.
I'm here.
Okay, read your poem, darling.
I'm delighted to be here among all of you. And you know, I closely observe the changes that take place. Every year, the paper or the print on the paper from which I intend to read gets larger. Here goes. My Watch in a Sow's Ear. The day I got my driver's license, I lost interest in driving. I mean, once I'd driven home in my Uncle Gus's car, after I'd spun by the truck stop to thumb my nose at the boys and the curb, the soda shop, to toot at the girls, and of course the butcher's where my best friend, Pimply Freddie, worked, all just to leave a trail of dust to choke him at the loading dock. I'd about had it with the latest new thing. I could, of course, talk about it at the game that night, pull up all big and shiny, and the next day at the car wash to raise money for the orphans, and on Sunday in the dugout where I smoked Camel cigarettes while my sister was at mass, but that was it. Nothing then or now keeps me on board for long. And that's always been fine until this Army thing got started. Found out the hard way Uncle Sam wants to keep you, so you don't want to do anything like enlist, which I can tell you can keep you kept. Not like Mary Lou being pregnant or nothing, which her father, thank God, took care of, thanks to the doctor whose plumbing he does down the shore. So all the while, I do the Army thing, but I had an angle, like my cousin Haggis had told me. They got too many guys from Jersey with big mouths like yours. So they're going to send you to automobile school or air condition repair, and you'll work down south till the war is over. Rednecks don't like guineas. Still worse, half Jews like you. So no sweat, because as long as you don't keep that mouth shut and they get a load of your bull, they won't risk sending you to Nam, where you'd have to listen and take orders. And maybe later, when you're skilled, they'll throw you out, honorable or not. And what do you care? Your old man can't read. So only open your pie just long enough to make Uncle Sam real uneasy with you with a gun. And it won't be long till you can come home in a uniform with skills that'll let you hop from job to job, just the way you like things. It'll work magic, like your basketball trunks and your shoulder pads and your baseball caps used to at the start of every season. Heck, it'll get you yah-yah the way it did when you dropped everything after the first day of every year. So I listened to Haggis, because like he said, everything I got into, I'm out of it like that. But here I am, fixing fans at munitions in the hum of a generator. Charlie sees the heat rise like liquid glass out the top of the trees and lobs a mortar every once in a while. And we lob one back just so each one knows the other's here. But for how long, I don't know. And Charlie don't care. I got everywhere to go in a hurry. He's got nowhere. Know what? If I had the time, I could feel sorry for him. But hell, it's going to rain. And at 1300 hours, I'm out of here. My watch in a sow's ear.
Wonderful, Frank.
Thank you.
Next is Lisa Cole Nicolau, my great mother Smile, and she comes from Fair Lawn, New Jersey.
Hello,
Lisa.
hello, Maria. Hello, everyone. And what a gift to be hearing your poems today. Thank you. My great-grandmother Smile. I saw my grandma Cookie at the eye doctor's office. She was smiling at me, of course, because she was always smiling, despite a life of hardship that my soft life doesn't even allow me to imagine. She sailed in steerage alone at 16 or maybe 12. The older she got, the younger the age of her voyage. My grandma Cookie, then just a young girl named Gussie, left her small village near Minsk after her mother remarried and her stepfather balked at having another mouth to feed. She survived the trip, endured hunger, and smiled even on the loneliest days of her journey. She started her American life on the Lower East Side in a cold water flat, working as a seamstress in the sweatshops until she made it up the island of Manhattan to Washington Heights. By the time I knew her, she was an old woman, my great-grandmother, a small woman with a giant smile who smelled of chicken soup and always carried bags of food in both her hands to deliver to her ailing friends. Grandma Cookie lived on the 6th floor, and on our weekly visits, I looked forward to taking the elevator all the way up. She was always waiting for us when the doors opened, her smile like a lighthouse in the dark hallway. And she would hold my hand as we walked to her apartment, sometimes stopping to say hello to her neighbors, 2 sisters so tiny and stooped that I could look them in the eye, though I was a child. The apartment was her promised land, her achievement after a lifetime of sewing and labor and saving and nursing 2 sick husbands. In that small, sunny space, I felt the sacredness that others feel in houses of worship. Finally, we arrived at her kitchen, and she would lead us to the tiny table, red and white linoleum, with a secret drawer that I believed only I knew about. I jiggled it and slurped my soup and looked up at my grandma Cookie, who sat in her stool in the corner and smiled at me. My grandma Cookie only made it to 88, young for a woman in my family. After a heart attack, her daughter-in-law, my mean Aunt Florence, told her she could no longer live on her own. So that night, she stopped smiling. But last week, there she was in the magnified mirror when I was trying on my new bifocals, moon-faced and smiling with big cheeks and a double chin. The young assistant tried to assuage me when I told her my grandmother was in the mirror, assuring me I looked youthful. I couldn't explain the comfort I felt from seeing my grandmother smile. The feeling that she was keeping me company at this time when both of my daughters have left home, and my house is sometimes as quiet and dark as that long-lost hallway leading to my grandmother's apartment. So I'm trying to smile, to carry on her legacy of kindness, even though we are living through a tidal wave of cruelty. I'll try to smile like my grandma Cookie and be a beacon of her light. Thank you.
Wonderful. We all love Grandma Cookie, and we're lucky if we have one. Marion Paganello, lipstick, and she also lives in Fairlawn, New Jersey. Marion, I saw you a minute ago.
I'm here. Can you see me?
I know you're there because I just saw you a second ago. Or I just read, don't worry about my seeing you.
Okay. I just want to thank you, Maria, and thanks to all poets. It's like, I don't know, being part of a poetry collage, looking at everyone on the screen. Anyway, here we go. Lipstick. I see you in the kitchen at 1315 Cornega, standing at the gas stove in your peignoir, your slender neck revealed below the dark bob of your curly hair. There is the sound of the spoon, slowly and rhythmically stirring the wheatina you are cooking for my breakfast. All the usual morning sentinels are before me on the red formica top table. A small glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, strained and pits removed, a pint carton of heavy cream, the cut glass sugar bowl, and one silver spoon. The wheatina cooked, you bring it to me. As you have taught me to do, I take the spoon and make a well in the middle of the fragrant and steaming cereal, into which you then pour a lavish stream of heavy cream, while I get to sprinkle the sugar all over the top. As always, you have applied your deep red lipstick, the very first thing you put on in the morning after brushing your teeth and rinsing your face. You are my grandmother, my father's mother. You rule your household from the third floor, where ancient Aunt Adele resides, to the first floor office and examination room, where my grandfather treats his many patients, to your red-tiled, sun-dappled kitchen, where my handsome Uncle John likes to stand at the fridge with the door open, consuming an entire quart of milk, it seems, in one long gulp. To the basement, where Minnie Vale, the housemaid, regales me with tales of the old country through a brogue as thick as my breakfast porridge, ironing the linens and waiting patiently for her warm plate of dinner and her single shot glass of scotch. Although you sleep in separate bedrooms, you and my grandfather win prizes at the beach club dance contests, gracing the floor with your syncopated rhythms. You are especially good at the rumba. You love your dogs more than your people, bringing them to the ocean off hours, where unleashed they run the beach, and you swim alone, exultant, unwatched, except sometimes by me. Even then, did I understand that something chafed. After tucking me into your bed with the intricate walnut headboard and winding up the music box which played Au clair de la lune, and saying, I just have to wash the dinner dishes and then I will be up, you would go downstairs to a bottle and a lipstick stained glass, which brought you to another, more complex, though still liquid release.
Marion, thank you. Wonderful. Next is Jennifer Poteet, Jules, and she lives in Montclair, New Jersey. Jennifer, read your poem, honey.
Hi, Maria. Thank you. And I'm very honored to be with all of you today. My poem is called Jules. In a blur of guilt and grief, I sold my mother's squash blossom necklaces, turquoise rings, and brooches. One woman bought everything. Her husband went out a second time to the ATM as I buffed a silver belt buckle, adding it to the glittering pile on the coffee table. That couple was kind and fair. Just days after my mother died, the husband counted out a crisp stack of 20s into my palm before I even summoned up a price. They knew my mother from the thrift shop, but I'll be damned if I could tell you their names. Those pieces would have languished in a drawer unworn, unseen, dark, tarnish. What remains now is sufficient. Sheets worn soft, a clay mezuzah, her cast iron skillet in which I fix my morning eggs.
Wonderful. What a great ending. Wanda S. Praisner, after the Saturday matinee, and Wanda's from Bedminster, New Jersey.
Thank you, Maria, and to all who made this wonderful award ceremony possible. Always a pleasure to be on board. After the Saturday matinee, it washes back now, a lifetime later, when I find her picture in a bureau drawer. The Saturday afternoon, Aunt Frida took me to the new John Wayne movie in the old Paramount Theater. 1942's Reap the Wild Wind. I watched as the sailing vessel foundered in a storm, hit a reef, ocean flooding the hold, the silk, and poor Susan Hayward a stowaway in a basket. In the first row of that air-cooled balcony, I clutched armrests, thought if I'd hold hard enough, I could keep her alive. The plush pricking through my gauzy sundress. And Frida saying, it's only a movie, make believe, a story, not real life. My relief as we exited the dark into blinding sunlight and walked to Walgreens, where I tasted my first malted milk and grilled cheese. I visited her in 1982 at the Manor Nursing Home, failed surgery, blood flooding her brain, a stroke. She, a remnant, plopped in a chair, body curled into itself, a tube taped to her beak-like nose. An infant's brain beneath the vacant eyes, her one accomplishment, to hold a straw. No matter what the doctor said, I knew she knew my voice as I held the cup. She's sipping until she sucked up air, and when I chuckled, her eyes filled up, worsening her portion. Tears began to slip down the slopes of her protruding cheekbones. My last motion, to wipe them away. Thank you.
Wonderful, honey. Beautiful poem. Arthur Russell, The Jetty, and from Nutley, New Jersey. Arthur.
Hi, Maria. And I want to thank you and Smita and Susan. I see you only once a year, but you're always with me when I'm writing. So thank you for that and for this. The Jetty. I stood on the slanted, wet black stones piled from Brighton Beach into Rockaway Inlet with coffee and a cigarette whose taste was ruined by the cold, salt air. Behind me, the 6-story shtetl of bricks and heavy Jewish food backed up to the elevated subway, spine of the old neighborhood, escape route bending north over Mrs. Stahl's Knishes towards Manhattan. Before me, Grandma Eva's ocean threw up lattices of spume from the blistered sea. I cuffed the drips in winter nose I inherited from my father and squinted toward the wind from Breezy Point, past which I'd sailed as far as Ambrose Lightship once, to see the ocean open, past explaining. I swabbed locker rooms at 17 and mowed the lawn around white and red impatience planted in the shape of the burgee of the yacht club where I tendered members to their sailboats at moorings in Sheepshead Bay. Evenings, when they'd all gone home on my last run among the tethered boats that always swung to face the tide, I smoked cigarettes and listened to My Love on a cream-colored transistor radio with a gold-tone grill and the name Electra etched in red script beside the thumb wheel for the volume. I winched the lightning boats from their trailers on race days and swung them on a davit over the cyclone fence down to the water, and I followed in the committee boat past Kingsborough College and the seaside nursing home where 40 years later, my father would die. Dropped the anchor in the inlet and fired blanks from a cannon to start the race that sent this regatta of school teachers, doctors, tradesmen, and a girl named Wendy with short dark hair around a course of red and black channel markers, buoys and bells, white hulls like whale bellies turned upward on a broad reach, or raised painted spinnakers like pregnant women promenading in summer dresses, though none of this could reach me in the unhappiness in which I bobbed and waited for the race to end. And then at 33, after years of working with a damp towel over my shoulder and my arms crossed on my chest as the exit manager of the Hollywood car wash on Coney Island Avenue, speaking college French with the Haitians who dried the cars, and leaving there for law school while living still in Brighton Beach, I stood on these same rocks reciting mnemonic devices to prepare for the bar exam. The summer, I also came closest to dunking a basketball in the playground at Brightwater Court. And 30 years later, with hips now as brittle as butter chip cookies, I climb these rocks again, stare at the ocean and back at the beach and the boardwalk and the men's room under the boardwalk where a boy once showed me his penis. I cut my feet on a broken bottle here when I ran with my sister to catch the orange drink man. I came for Tuesday night fireworks and found my grandparents laughing with neighbors in woven web beach chairs when they were my age now. I brought girls to my apartment in my red Monte Carlo. I bought sturgeon from the fish store and cooked it in garlic and butter. I lived across from the synagogue where you could hear the men through the open windows murmuring on Yom Kippur, while the women outside wondered how long after sunset the rabbi would keep them. I will never leave this place. Thank you.
Wonderful, Arthur. You have a way of recreating a place. Next is Gwen T. Samuels, and her poem is called South of the Border, and she now lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Gwen, would you read your poem? Where are you, Gwen? You were just here.
Forgot to unmute. I'm here.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I just wanted to say that it's been about 16 years since I took your first retreats, and I'm far away and I miss them, but I'm always forever grateful to the inspiration that you have been for me. And I just want to say one sentence about this poem. And that is that, as you may know, about 6 million Black people moved from the southern United States to the north during the Great Migration, escaping from poverty and oppression. So this poem is a story about a Black family driving back down south and their experience at a place that welcomed them. So I think maybe some of you who have driven to the south would recognize this. The poem is called South of the Border. Joy on our summer drive home was rolling up on the junction of I-95, US 301, and US 501, south of the border rest stop between the Carolinas, Dillon to be exact. The halfway point from New York to Florida meant entering a new mindset. We were no longer in the South, rather the deep South. Driving home with Mama and Daddy, we got excited, reading sign after sign, beginning 100 miles away. We couldn't wait to meet Pedro. He was a big deal bandito who made us all feel like wieners. We never sausage a place. What a thrill to be surrounded by giant sombreros and everything the color of terracotta and guacamole, to see bright lights at night on South Carolina's version of the Strip. Brother hit the ice cream shop, then the go-karts. Daddy hit the liquor store, then the barber shop. Mama loved to buy Mexican blankets. I was a sucker for the gift shops too. I loved all kinds of Mexican trinkets, jumping beans, caracoles from the Philippines, Spanish fans and maracas, made in China, not Oaxaca. Right there at Pedro's post office, I'd send postcards to friends up north who never got to go home. Then we'd all have tacos for dinner and breakfast at Pedro's hot tamales. Racist? Maybe. But where else would I have learned anything about Mexicans? No Spanish-speaking people were in the textbooks I read in school, except Columbus, who must have known Spanish since he worked for the colonizers. For real, giant Pedro Bandito with his cool sombrero may be why I speak very fluent Spanish today. Racist or not, we didn't think so back then. Only at Pedro's could we stop and pee in a real toilet instead of on the shoulder, drink water from the white folks' fountain, sit down to eat food at a real restaurant cooked by the hands of hundreds of Black workers there, instead of picking up a brown bag at the back door. Sleep in a motel on a real bed instead of being prey to the KKK along the way. If we stocked up on gas, ice, drinks, food, and don't forget the fireworks, we could almost make it to Florida without having to stop again. Today, they call south of the border tacky, campy, garish, racist, but to us, it was a cherished place where we could see hundreds of Black travelers just like us and give them the nod. South of the border was a deep South spot we could make it out of alive. With Pedro, we felt safe on our journey to and from down home. Back then, we didn't talk about hierarchy of oppression. I guess no one makes the connection until their number comes up. Thank you.
Wonderful, honey. You should be very proud of that poem. Next is Margaret R. Sirocco, and The Unlocked Door, and she comes from Montclair, New Jersey.
Thank you, Maria.
I
Thanks.
just saw you a second ago. Now I lost you.
I'm here. I know. You'll hear me.
I'll hear you.
That's it. It's been wonderful to hear everybody today. Mama often told us a story about a family that lived near her during the Great Depression. She was a child, like me when I first heard it. Our front doors were never locked growing up, Mama said, every time there was a burglary, break-in, or when we ate chicken for dinner. He stole a chicken to feed his family. Everyone was poor. We all were, if only he asked. We always shared what little we had. They arrested him, put him in jail for years. It wasn't right, for stealing one chicken. Back then, immigrants could not stand up for thieves or speak on their behalf if they were in custody. Interference meant arrest. She did not mention his name, nor what became of him or his family, though we asked every time. I haven't eaten chicken in more than 50 years. We bolt our doors day and night. The car in the driveway has an alarm. What would it take to feel safe enough? It seems we will never embrace what is mine is yours, what is yours is ours. I unlock my house today, open up the front and back doors, pull aside the curtains and throw open the windows, allowing fresh air to cleanse in a complex world. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I skipped somebody, so I'm going to go back. By mistake, I passed Lori Ruzick, the Jetty, and she comes from, wait a second, I have to go across here. Lord, my eyes, I can't go across the lines so well anymore. Okay, wait a minute. Verona, sorry. The poem is called Pop's Advice. Lori Rusick. Sorry, I skipped you before.
Thank you, everybody. Pop's advice. If I had followed his advice, I'd be a lawyer. It wasn't that he wanted me to follow in his footsteps, although I think he would have liked that. It was that he felt my ability to argue any point until it was obliterated. The arguments he witnessed between my mother and I were legendary. They are still used as a rating scale. My childhood friend Mary will say, I had a real screaming match yesterday. I mean, not as bad as you and your mom, but it got loud. Pop chose to ignore us. Hard to imagine now. He would just sit and read the paper, as though unaware of the hysterical voices, the tears, the slammed doors. He married my mom when I was 13 years old, and he, a 50-year-old confirmed bachelor. He said he had been able to outrun every woman before my mom. Wiggled out of every potential marriage ensnarement until she walked into his office. He maintained she tripped him, that then she pounced, and while he was down, he liked to describe the fact that he might have hit his head. He remembered waking up in Pennsylvania with a gold ring on his left hand. My mother would roll her eyes, say, I never argued you into anything. He'd laugh. You? Really? You argued about everything. During his first year at fatherhood, he came to realize it would take more than a law degree to navigate my mother's and my relationship. I didn't talk to him for the first 8 months of the marriage. My mother would ask why, and I'd say, you should have just dated him. Seriously, are you two planning on having a baby? But then I began to notice things. He was smart, kind, perceptive, and funny. I heard him whisper to my mom after one particularly explosive 20-minute exchange between us that upon careful evaluation as to why I should be grounded for breaking curfew, my mother was losing the debate badly. Pop made this observation very matter-of-factly. On another occasion, I overheard him say to my mom that the case she had against me on a recent violation was weak, that I was going to rip it to shreds. I asked him in the hall and I smiled. I started paying closer attention to him, started thinking, we should talk. And we did, a lot. I remember his blue eyes, him grinning as I had the car keys taken away for a week. Pop laughed at me. You should be a lawyer. It'll keep you on the right side of that jail door.
Wonderful, wonderful. Really made them come alive and yourself come alive. I'm sorry, let me not miss somebody here because I have double vision. Just wait a minute. Next is Maxine Sussman, and her poem is called Home Phone, and she lives in Princeton, New Jersey. Maxine?
Yes, hi, Maria. I'm here.
Hi, honey, how are you?
I'm fine. It's so good to see you and
good to see you also.
And to be here and to hear these wonderful poems. It's very enriching. This is Home Phone. Back when phones connected places, every night my father called his sister or she called him. I'll just give S a buzz. He'd stand in the hallway to the kitchen, just home from hospital rounds, still in suit and tie, holding the receiver coiled to the phone on the wall. Every night before we sat down to dinner. It took a few minutes and lasted for years. All they both needed to know for the time being, how's everything, S? Short for Esther, short for how are you really doing? How's the apartment? Are you getting out? Who's been in touch? Is that neighbor still around? Heard from your daughters living many states away? Of the original 8, they had just each other. And my aunt always was. All right. Barely 5 feet tall, she sold the gray Chevy when my uncle died and took the bus alone to the A&P, the kosher deli, shul, all around Yonkers, as far as White Plains. She'd been a nurse. She held a steady course. She called from the armchair in her living room. A tinge of irritation might creep into Dad's voice if she kept him on too long. He'd hang up with a firm click. After he died, she continued the nightly call with my mother. How are you, Carol? How's everything, S? Fine, can't complain. The kids? Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, next is Claire Ultimo, Sex for Beginners, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. You're one of my poetic heroes. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Smita. And I really enjoyed myself today listening to all you guys. Sex for Beginners. In the 4th grade, on the way home from school, Mary Zaleski showed us a box of condoms she found, but none of us knew exactly what they were for, except we knew they were for grown-ups. Tin can opened like a tiny suitcase, and it looked especially clean, like something a doctor would need. A dozen white plastic things folded perfectly inside like rows of tiny closed mouths. These are the things men wear when they get their periods, Mary said, and we all laughed knowingly, though none of us could verify the information firsthand. We didn't dare touch one, as though we already knew they were dangerous, or maybe we knew we couldn't fold them up neatly again if we took one out. So she closed the top, took them home, and hid them in her underwear drawer under the cotton panties that said Monday at the top. Later, she told us she got in a lot of trouble when her mother found them, but I figured that was because she didn't try to give them back to the person that had lost them, and that was considered stealing. Part 2. My mother's find table napkins in the big closet in the dining room for a Sunday dinner. I searched everywhere while she went for a tablecloth in the drawer and finally found a small, narrow box way in the back that said sanitary napkins on the front and the word Kotex in big block letters. I found them, Mom. I brought them out and handed them to her, but she put them behind her back right away. She seemed surprised and upset and said, "Those are for when you're older, Claire." And since she looked so strange and had to catch her breath all at the same time, I somehow figured that this had something to do with men and women and being naked. So I told her not to worry, that I knew all about that. That even though I knew about the things that men had to wear when they got their periods, because Mary Zaleski found a box of them on the way home from school. I thought I sounded very mature. Later, I heard my mother whisper in a desperate tone to my father in the living room with the lights off. "She knows everything, Stevie, and she's only 8 years old. Oh my God, she knows everything." I hid close by and heard them, secretly satisfied with their shock, because I thought I must be growing up, even though I had no idea what I was talking about. Growing up must be like that sometimes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Jamie Went, Sadell Friedman, 1941, and Jamie's from Chicago, Illinois. Jamie, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Good.
So yeah, my poem is Sadell Freeman, 1941. The healing powers of mineral baths in Hot Springs, Arkansas, called to me. I took my eldest son south, hoping the waters would cure my arthritis. But it was gospel music that renewed me, tugging at my pearls, showing my feet the way to the Black church on Sundays. We were the only Jews in Hot Springs. If we were Jews, we were not white. If we hid our Jewishness and were white, we were not black. We fit in like a ripped stocking. We slept in a hotel, and I knew there were whispers. My husband showed up once a month with a pile of cash for the mineral baths and for shoes, school clothes, and food. We weren't poor though, and he knew about the gambling scene, spent money there. Gospel music woke me on weekdays, sang me to the hot natural baths where water temperatures reached 148 degrees. My son and I sang hymns about Jesus as we walked. He went to school and fought off white boys looking for his horns. We didn't fast on Yom Kippur that year. My bones remained weak. The waters did not heal me. All the way back to Chicago, I hummed gospel in my son's ear on the sleeper train. Back home, Black people were still living on the South Side. We never saw them. We never heard gospel music unless I unwound my voice while cleaning dishes, dipped Jesus into the waters of our Jewish North Side apartment. I never talked about those Black women back in Arkansas who couldn't share the baths with me, couldn't cool the blisters on their feet. Their melody is strong and beautiful, healing more than water.
Oh, really wonderful. I just am so pleased at how much good poetry there is in the world, how healing that is. The next honorable mention winner is Zant Wintries. Do you ever think of me? And he lives in Montclair, New Jersey. Zant, are you there?
I am right here. Do you see me? Hear me?
I hear you, but I don't
Okay.
see you, but that's all right.
All right, as long as you can hear me. My Wi-Fi went out about 2 people ago, so as long as you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you, darling.
Okay. Thank you. Do you ever think of me? I think of you back then, every now and then, and here and now. I can't seem to help it. I've always had a remembrance of you, an image of you that sits upon a page in my brain that I simply cannot seem to turn. The other day I saw that image, that picture, your 9th grade class photo on the actual page of our freshman yearbook. And I was surprised to see there was more there than I had been remembering. Your skin was flawless and seemed to know nothing of the ravages of acne so many of the rest of us were knowing to some degree or another at that time. You actually appeared cherubic. Your hair was so shiny and wavy and a blonder than blonde that seemed to glow in your photo, with bangs that fell and landed right above your darker eyebrows that made your big green eyes seem even bigger and even greener than they actually were. You looked right into the camera with what I'm thinking now, you were thinking then, was confidence. Instead, I see now that those big green eyes were exhibiting an innocence a 14-year-old boy would most likely never dare or care to have displayed. And yet there you were doing just that, whether you dared or cared to. And then there was the collar of your beige button-down shirt. It hid a neck that puberty had yet to fill out and strengthen so that you might hold your head up high like the confident young man I'd been remembering you to be all these years. You looked as if you wanted to disappear into that shirt. I certainly knew that feeling. I'd known it that very day when it came my turn to sit in front of the photographer and his camera. I'd shown up that Monday morning, as I tried to show up every morning, as me. But being me or becoming me, I was finding to be more and more of a trial with each growing day. I sat there in front of the photographer and his camera, trying so hard to look the cool I knew myself to be. I wanted everybody to see in my photo the cool me I knew I was. And even though I heard the photographer tell me to smile, my thoughts were a jumbled mess and I didn't. When he snapped the photo, my thoughts were elsewhere. And that special something about me that I wanted all the world to see was replaced by the nothing you seemed forever insistent on telling me I was. I had just passed you elsewhere in the hall, mere minutes before that picture was taken, only to have my confidence shaken and taken by you. You, as you elbowed your friend, snickered and pointed, and with a chuckled snort simply told him to look at him. 3 simple words filled with such disgust and derision. I wanted to disappear into my shirt, so me, and so not beige, and so not buttoned down. That I could wear my shirt, so me, so well, and with a confidence you dared not display? Why could you not just let me be me? On the page opposite yours in our yearbook is my class picture. And in my big blue eyes, so bluer than blue, against my then long dark brown hair, is the same innocence exhibited in your big green ones. And then there's my neck, not yet filled out or strengthened by puberty either. Long and skinny, it wouldn't allow me to disappear into my shirt. I look at you at 14 and wonder if there were ravages deep inside you, not apparent on that flawless skin of yours, upon that cherubic face of yours. And I don't care. I think of you back then, every now and then, and here and now. I can't seem to help it. Thank you.
Wonderful, Zan.
Thanks.
And the last honorable mention is Neil Zern and Depression Era Frugal. And Neil comes from Denver, Colorado. Neil?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, read your poem, John.
Great. And thanks, Maria, and sending good wishes from Denver. Mother was Depression Era Frugal. Saved what she could. Rubber bands, string, napkins, and packs of sugar she took after dining at a local restaurant. Pens, pencils, push pins, paper clips, pennies, postage stamps, tin foil, coffee cans, and this and that, stored in glass jars or cardboard boxes labeled as to contents. It was like there was always a chance she would run out of something that, Lord have mercy, could never be replaced, like a nutcracker, fancy plastic silverware, or a set of Red Rooster coasters that have been around since the flood. Don't be caught without was the opening mantra. And so, when Mother passed on to that sacred place where there are no bread lines and there is always a chicken in every pot, it was my job to go over all she had, judge what should go, who should get what or not, and bless her belongings as if they were holy relics from a long lost century. Remember her presence and display the Red Rooster coasters whenever company decided to drop by.
Wonderful poem. I love that ending. Okay, and now we're going to do the editor's choice. And the first one is Florence Ames, and her poem is Stillness, and she's from Woodland Hills, California. Florence, you there? Did I see her before? I'm sure I did. Florence?
She's not there.
She's not there? Okay. I know I saw her before. The next is Amanda Lucenta Crane and Scotch Tape Nails, and she's from River Edge, New Jersey. Amanda Crane, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, read your poem.
Okay, thanks, Marie. Scotch tape nails. A big girl needs long red nails to tap on Catholic school desks, but we weren't allowed to get Lee press-ons. So we cut strips of clear Scotch tape and stuck them on 8-year-old fingers, which was pretty inventive. We painted them during class, the scent of wet and wild polish wafting over math problems and social studies. Although we were disruptive, Mrs. A was always the nice teacher. She knew what we were hiding in our desks and let us do it anyway. Maybe she understood that girls need to feel pampered in the strangest of places, like in the middle of a class on a Wednesday. Maybe she knew how I was getting closer and closer to the popular table by any strange way necessary. This is how girls bond together, and this is how they tear apart. Thank you.
Wonderful, honey. Love it. Okay, wait a minute, guys. You have to give my eyes a chance here. Alicia Dugas, and her poem is called The Scent of Us, and she comes from, well, either Washington or Woodbridge. I can't tell. Tell me where you come from, Alyssa.
I come from Woodbridge.
Woodbridge. Okay, great. Alyssa, read us your poem.
Thank you. Okay. The scent of us. It smells like burning. It smells like waiting. It smells like you are not here. It smells like string lights and stop signs and brake pads and like waiting. It smells like the space between mountains, like parking lots, like several different people talking at once. It smells like you are angry. It smells like hotels, like impermanence, like goodbyes. It smells like going. It smells like sitting across from someone who does not want to be next to you. It smells like cheap vinyl seats. It smells like open spaces, like emptiness, like waiting. It smells like pounding on the floor with your fists, like turning up the radio to static, like visiting forests and hoping you are stepping where no one else has stepped, like you are alone, like you want to be alone. It smells like anticipation. It smells like you. It smells like the way cats walk on snow, like gentleness, like pressing yourself into something, like trees that make tents out of sidewalks with their roots, like pushing, like dogs barking at strangers, like standing on hot cement, like biting. It smells like holding someone. It smells like bus stops, like neon signs, like everything. It smells like everything. It smells like hurt. It smells like waiting. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, next is Janine Horber, Praise, and she comes from Washington, New Jersey. Janine, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Maria.
Hi, honey.
Thank you.
Read your poem.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me and putting this together. So my poem is Praise, and it's after Ila Kaminsky's poem of the same name. They were leaving Romania in such a hurry that they forgot the suitcase filled with English dictionaries outside the door to the chicken coop. They came to America without a dictionary, but a few words did remain. Head, violent waves on the hull of a boat, the way sunshine strikes the stalk of a wild leek. Senseless, the way sand traps footprints along the shore, still wet from a wave, still new. Exhausted, fields of yellow daisies where you remain, fantasizing until you are fulfilled. Dead, a single wheel turning, winding paths from Romania to Austria to now. My Oma, who should be a Nana, learned Hungarian in school and Swabish at home. She was always two women, the one who couldn't speak Hungarian and the one who didn't speak English. She lost her voice in Germany, far from the farms and small homes of Hamroth before it was Hungary or Austria or no longer home. Her family left in a hurry, sneaking past Russians, mountains, and lagers into Germany. My Oma was raised in dirt and dust as Helena, growing up in a place she didn't quite belong. Her father a farmer, her mother a grower, hardened by tragedy and loss of one husband and then another. The first woman wasn't more than 20 as they set out in wagons, but she could never forget the way a field looked, so different in Romania, how the dirt stained her fingers. The second woman was born on a ship in the Atlantic, off a coast she could not forget. The American ship, the retired SS Sturgis, brought her to a new life, to New Jersey. Maybe there was a third woman or infinite women within her as she walked the halls of Ellis Island without the English words for I am sad without my home. Maybe that is refuge, to be sad and lost all in the same. English, no, America would not be enough to fill that void as she left a dead brother and two sisters behind. So she threw her heart, a suitcase of paprikash, and dirt from that German seaport into the Atlantic, where she could not find it again. It was easier to be lost in a new land without the weight of the old, a war that stole her brother, a home she'd never know again. Flowing from her eyes like waterfalls or movie reels, cutting from one scene to another, seeing Hamroth in Clifton, cousins, siblings walking out of their graves onto Knapp Avenue. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, honey. Beautiful job. Next is Josh Humphrey, a Summer of the Sinkholes, and he lives in Kearney, New Jersey. Josh Humphrey.
Hey, thanks, Maria. Thanks, everybody. It's always very humbling to hear everybody. Summer of the Sinkholes. This was the summer that my father wanted us to move to Texas until my mother told him where she would live the rest of her life. That old green house, just 2 turns from where her own parents were percolating coffee at all hours. Even then, we knew that she was our well, our strength, our white teacup. Still, we loved to listen to him talk about planes and flight times, breastless engines. This was the summer we played baseball without skill. Our grandfathers shook their heads at our tennis balls, the aluminum bats and sunscreen. Still, we played every day until the sinkholes opened on the fields, the old copper mine under our town awake and opening all its eyes like the past forgotten. This was the summer we rode our bikes out to the swamps and the old factories from the war, by where the ghosts of the shipyard scowled and talked endlessly. They said we never told our stories right, blood and salt, and we never could understand the meaning of sinking. We never really carried anything, never a thing that was bigger than we were, never a thing that could crush out our breath and take off our heads. We just pretended to listen as they bobbed in the water like their wrecks and their driftwood. We just looked along the road, waiting for the trucks to try to make them blow horns. If not, we would throw rocks and awkward curses. We imagined those words, the best kind of temporary, gone with the breath. But even now, I remember 100 stupid things I said. Things that were, in their very design, born to be forgotten, and so remembered always.
Lovely, Josh. Okay, next is Lainey Sutton Johnson, and her poem is called My First Love, and it's Hillsbury, New Jersey, where she lives. Lenny, are you there?
I'm
So you're
here.
there.
Do you
Okay,
see me?
good. I don't see you, but it's this whole thing with these screens with 9,000 photos on. It doesn't matter.
Can
I
you,
can hear you.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'll just read. I can't see me either, but I guess that doesn't matter. Okay, so I'll just read?
Yes, just read.
Okay, my first love. My first love was Jesus. As a frightened child, the nuns taught me he loved me, even when they put me in a corner for not eating, or said they'd cut off my finger if I was the one who took the crayon. I hadn't, but what if they thought I had? He loved me when I got heavy and had horrible pimples. And Sister Elsa said I was a big piece in 6th grade, and I needed to wash my face full of blackheads. She didn't know I always did, but Jesus knew and loved me. When I was the only girl in grammar school to sing Ave Maria as the angel Gabriel in the Christmas pageant, baby Jesus didn't care what I looked like, but loved to hear me sing. Later, when I realized how kind he was to people no one liked, lepers, prostitutes, the poor, and thieves, I knew I loved him. Even after I read how angry he was at the money changers in the temple, I loved him because he was angry at those profiting from the loss of others, angry at those who took advantage of the poor and weak, angry at those who hated because they had different beliefs about gender, love, status, angry at those who were different colors, like some folks in our own time. My first love was Jesus, my criteria for other men to live by. And then, years too late, I met him. Though he speaks of black holes, universes, time and space and Buddha, he is the whole of all I loved in Jesus, non-judgmental, kind, heroic, filled with how to love the petal of a flower, yet knowing how to let go of pain. He paints a world with words on pages filled with beauty, depth, wisdom, and music. My first love is a poet. Thank you. Good to see you, Maria. Thank you so much.
Good to see you too. Okay, wait a second, honey. I gotta put. Gina Logan is the next, and her poem is Alexander, and she lives in Braintree, Vermont. Gina Logan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, it's been wonderful. It's an honor to be here and to have heard all these wonderful poems and all these grandma poems. I'm a grandma. I have 7 grandchildren, and this poem is for one of them, Alexander. Alexander lives inside himself, inside his angel's face and golden curls, his Caribbean eyes and rosebud lips that never speak, 2 folded shells that sometimes curve into a secret, tantalizing smile. Alexander's 9 years old. He loves amusement rides, pizza, balloons. He loves his mother, whimpers at the door when she goes out, rages when she will not let him smear the walls with feces or break a glass and dance
This
barefoot,
meeting is
streaking,
being
gleeful among the splinters.
Okay, I think I'm on.
Where's Alexander? What's he into now? Slippery minnow, shadow child, mute stopwatch, ticking off the minutes of our lives. Time, the enemy. He's 9. What happens when he's 17 or 50? The answer's implacable as
Wait,
stones.
somebody's
We
reading.
hand them
Somebody's
to
not muted and
morning.
disturbing the poet. Turn yourself off, whoever you are.
Time, the enemy. He's 9. What happens when he's 17 or 50? The answer's implacable as stones. We hand them to each other, mourning. and Alexander flickers through the hours like a rainbow. After a day apart, the family reunites, a finished puzzle at the supper table, and Alexander's learned to use a spoon. But will he? He laughs and twirls away from us, waving the spoon gaily above his sunny head, a silvery baton. The music it conducts, a tune that only Alexander hears. Thank you.
Is there a possibility for Regina to read that marvelous poem again? So powerful. And, you know, I was distracted with the other voice. Is it possible, Maria, for her to read her poem
Sure,
again?
she can read her poem again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will read it again. Alexander lives inside himself, inside his angel's face and golden curls, his Caribbean eyes and rosebud lips that never speak, two folded shells that sometimes curve into a secret, tantalizing smile. Alexander's 9 years old. He loves amusement rides, pizza, balloons. He loves his mother, whimpers at the door when she goes out, rages when she will not let him smear the walls with feces, or break a glass and dance barefoot, shrieking, gleeful among the splinters. Where's Alexander? What's he into now? Slippery minnow, shadow child, mute stopwatch, ticking off the minutes of our lives. Time, the enemy. He's 9. What happens when he's 17 or 50? The answers implacable as stones, we hand them to each other, mourning, and Alexander flickers through the hours like a rainbow. After a day apart, the family reunites, a finished puzzle at the supper table, and Alexander's learned to use a spoon. But will he? He laughs and twirls away from us, waving the spoon gaily above his sunny head, a silvery baton. The music it conducts, a tune that only Alexander hears.
Wonderful, Gina. Beautiful poem.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry you were interrupted during your first reading of it. Greg Masters, and the poem is called Harry James, and he's from New York, New York.
Music it conducts, a tune that only Alexander hears.
Thanks, Maria and Smita and everyone at the Patterson Literary Review. Happy to be amongst this crowd today. Heard a lot of great poems. Harry James. An untamed girl is standing on a desk. I think we're between classes when this episode of fury unfolds. An adult appears and attempts to restore order. What's your name? He demands of my classmate, Lincoln Junior High School, number 4. Harry James, she responds, exacerbating the challenge to all decency and propriety. I remember her long dark hair, Italian, downtown, and wanting to know more about her as I stood back admiring her stance. She and I both know who Harry James is, I'm thinking. Some big band leader our parents used to listen to. I'm envying her feral grace that likely landed her in detention, but for that moment, at least, reminds us more timid of the natural state we all once inhabited, from which we all were forcibly weaned. Just one more display of resistance, I somehow recall 50 plus years later, and salute. Thank you.
Wonderful, Greg. Very good. Merle Notches, The Primary Handbook, and Merle comes from Kensington, California. Merle, are you there? No? Okay. Tina Schumann, is Tina there? She was
Yes, I
there
am.
before.
Hold on. I'm
Okay,
coming.
honey. Why I read the obits, and she comes from Seattle, Washington.
Hi,
Tina, will
everyone.
you read your poem?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Bring it up here. Thanks to everyone. I'm really enjoying listening to all your poems. Why I read the obits. Because I feel the dead deserve at least that. The scan of a face, the perusal of platitudes, dull and trite, but trying their damnedest. Because I want to know if the plot of any life can be contained to a few square inches of polite narrative, data and fact-checked details. After my mother died, my doctor advised me to not sanctify her. She was what she was. Because I am often left pondering more about the writer than the deceased, someone had to speak for them, to get them on the roll call, to attempt some final elegiac magic that will never come close to the slog of every lived day, the boring life that paid the rent, that thing their mother said, the 3 a.m. taxi that ended their great love. Because I want to learn how others managed to swim upstream for so long, how their human stain remains, because I fear death and its reductionist tendencies. And like poetry, the words will never equal the life, because there, for the grace of time and biology, go us, because I crave the angst and pride of an immigrant starting over in a new country, disembodied in a foreign landscape, rid of gravity, earthly routines, and the refuge of love. Give me that life distilled, because I am not noble or kind or even generous. I just want to get high on the existential serotonin relief that comes with not being dead. Thank you.
I know the feeling.
Thanks, everyone.
Donna Spector, The Complete Wife, 1962, Warwick, New York. Donna, are you there? Donna, you were there before. Okay, not there. Shane Wagner, are you there? Shane?
I am.
Okay, Shane Wagner, Feeding My Son, and Chatham, New Jersey. Shane, read your poem.
The other day, I was feeding my son. He's 19.
There. Wait, what's that?
I am.
Okay. What is that?
Somebody isn't muted.
That person keeps unmuting herself. Call her out, please.
Who is it?
I think she just
Lawrence,
muted.
turn off your mute mic.
Who did not mute?
I'm sorry, I keep muting her and she keeps unmuting herself. So I think I'll just put her in the waiting room. Sorry.
Good
Sorry.
idea.
It was Florence, Maria. It was Florence. It was Florence. She's having trouble.
And
It's
everybody
Florence. I
blames
think I
the
should probably
boys.
put her in the waiting room because I mute her and she keeps unmuting and it's disruptive. So
yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring her back because she didn't get a chance to read. So when at the end, we'll bring her back and let her read. Okay, so meanwhile, we have Shane Wagner, Feeding My Son. You might want to start again.
I will. I will. Thank you.
Disruptive.
The other day, I was feeding my son. He's 19. I say I was feeding my son because since he was a baby, he hasn't had a bite of food or a sip of a drink unless someone else was holding the spoon or the cup. When you have children, you have expectations. There are those expectations that come from your family and your community. Things like what it means to be part of a certain ethnic group, or what it means to belong to a certain religion. There are those expectations parents bring themselves. Some hope their children will be great musicians or good at math. Other dream that their children will be great athletes. Mine was to be able to talk with my son. In fact, I was really looking forward to having the talk, the birds and the bees, and to being there for him through all those awkward times in his tweens and teens and 20s and 30s. But when you have a child with special needs, you have to reset your expectations. And you do it in waves. You let go and you hold on. You let go and you hold on. You let go because it hurts to keep expecting things that never happen. You hold on because you feel naked without your hopes and dreams. You let go and you hold on and you promise yourself you're going to let it all go, dig deep and get it all out. So you do the hard work and you let it all go, and then you realize there's more work to be done. So there I was, feeding my son lunch, having my lunch with him, when out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, whole, handsome, healthy. I did a double take and it was gone. But I remember what he looked like, and I remember how it felt. I'm not a religious man. I don't often think about God or soul or spirit, and maybe what I saw was an unexercised expectation bubbling up to the surface. Or maybe, for one brief moment, the veil of our reality was pulled back just enough for me to see my son's true self.
Wonderful, honey. Very, very difficult poem to write. Then Bill Winter on Searsburg Mountain, Vermont. And Bill lives in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Bill, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. I knew I saw you before. Okay, Bill, read your poem, dear.
I will. And I just want to thank you, Maria, for all you do for poets and poetry. Winter on Searsburg Mountain, Vermont. Here, incessant snow erases all color from memory. Wealth is a good pair of boots and dry socks. The freight train's distant whistle, a love song. The chittering of mice, conversation. And the moon's reluctant rise, the only clock. Then on a clear as ice night, the maple's sap cracks like gunshots. The skyscraper speaks in a language of splendor, and you remember why you're here. One day soon, winter, that light swallower, will grudgingly yield to the wheel of seasons. You'll peel off layers of flannel and bathe in voluptuous light.
Wonderful. Really beautiful, beautiful. And let's get Florence Ames back in the room. Sue, can you get Florence Ames
Okay,
back?
yes, Maria, yes.
Florence, are you there?
She's on her way. I let her in.
Yeah. She's not unmuting.
She
Now
should.
you have to unmute, Florence.
All right. Did I unmute?
Now you did. Okay. Read your poem.
Okay. I'm on.
Florence lives in Woodland Hills, California.
Right. Anyway, it's been it's been an experience, but wonderful. All right. The poem I'm going to read is Stillness. Stillness. I am very quiet. There is the familiar ringing in my ears. More subtle though, much like the muted whistle of my tea kettle. But there is no water boiling, no molecules wanting to escape, only quiet and the sense of suspension, a lightness that leads me through to this release, to letting go and staying with my breath that grows ever fainter.
Wonderful, Floria. Thanks so much. It's wonderful to see you again after a long time. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I know this was a long program, and I thank you for your patience. It's wonderful to hear good poems and to celebrate them. And next year, I hope we're in the Hamilton Club and we're able to celebrate together in a room. And I also want to say that none of our programs at the Poetry Center at Passaic County Community College were possible without grants from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, donations by individual people and members of the Poetry Center who provide support for us. And also, they would certainly not be possible without the president of Passaic County College and all the support that Passaic County College gives us for the Poetry Center and providing such a wonderful space for us to work. I also want to thank Smita Desai, who's my secretary and who does such great work all the time, doesn't she? She's such a sweetheart. And also Susan Balick, who really helps with all this tech stuff very much, in addition to doing 10,000 other things for the Poetry Center and for all our other programs. So I want to thank them and to say, give them an extra round of applause, although we can't hear the applause. It's not the same as if you can't hear the applause. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'm glad to see you all. Congratulations on your wonderful poems. And hopefully we'll see you at next month's program. And have a wonderful week.